Hello everyone and welcome to this Suzie Jules tutorial video. This video is put together to support the Suzie Jules crochet bauble kit and support the written instructions that are included in your kit. This can be sometimes quite tricky to understand, and it's quite useful to see this in the flesh and these put together. The kit includes two patterns. One that is basically a pattern that will cover the entire bauble like this one. This is another one that's just been done with one of the skeins. So the skeins of yarn that come in your kit are a 10 gram skein like this. And one skein will cover a bauble, depending on your tensioning, but it should cover, and you can see this is one that I've done in one colour and it's left me with this amount left. So the first pattern will help you to basically cover, but what's really nice is if you want to play around with the colours that come in your kit, and as you can see here I've done the basic pattern, which is just a double crochet UK terms, single crochet US terms all the way up the bauble, but I've changed the colours to create this stripe effect. The second pattern included in the kit is to create this style crochet, which is a bit based on a granny style, and it basically makes two cups in half that are then stitched together, as opposed to the all over design, which starts from a magic circle at the bottom and works your way up. Okay, so to start the basic pattern, I'm going to be starting off by making a magic circle. I've got my skein here in my left hand as I'm right-handed, and the short end of the yarn here in my right hand. And what I do is I just do a simple crossover. So I've got the short end holding in my left hand now, and I'm going to just bend over the yarn and create a loop sitting on the top like so. I then insert my hook into that loop I've created and grab the long end of the yarn. So you can now see that the loop is the hook is attached, but just to secure that I'm going to yarn over and pull through that loop on the hook, and there I have created my magic circle. And I'm ready to start. You'll see that the yarn is kind of twisted. That's what I want it to look like. That's going to create my magic circle, so that if I pull this short end, that circle reduces in size. So now I'm going to start with the first round, and in that first round I'm going to do 12 double crochets, that's in UK terms, single crochet in US terms, into this magic circle. So in order to do that, I insert my hook into the circle, yarn over, pull through. I've got two loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through both. That's created the first double crochet. Insert into the magic circle, yarn over, pull through, two loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through, both loops on the hook. That's two. So I'm going to carry on round now and do 12 of those into the magic circle, and you'll notice that I am crocheting over both parts of the yarn in this magic circle. Okay, I've now just finished my 12 double crochets into my magic circle, and now I'm going to grab that short end and I'm going to pull so that I'm pulling my crochet together, and I want to pull it as hard as I possibly can to make that circle in the middle as small as I can, if not virtually to nothing. I'm then just going to now complete that first round by doing a slip stitch into the first stitch here. So you can see the double arms, the two arms of that first stitch. I insert my hook underneath both of those, yarn over and pull through those two arms, but also the one on the hook, and that's a slip stitch there created, and that's the end of the first round. So I'm now going to start the second round, and to do that I'm going to chain one, and I should have 12 stitches all the way around in that first round, and on this next round I want to make 24 stitches. So in order to do that I'm going to do 2 double crochet into every stitch of the previous round. So I can see my first stitch here, so I go under both arms of the stitch below, yarn over and pull through 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through both, and into the same place I'm going to do the same again, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops on the hook. So I've now done 2 stitches. I want to have a total of 24, so I'm going to work my way around and I'm going to count as I go to make sure that I do create 24 stitches. 23, 24. And now I'm going to just join onto that first stitch there to close this second round, and to do that I'm going to slip stitch into that space. So I'm going to insert my hook under both arms of that stitch below, yarn over, pull through those two and pull through the loop on the hook, and there I've closed round 2. To start round 3 I do the same again. I chain 1, but the pattern of working round in the stitch this time is you're going to do 1 double crochet into that same space, then 2 into the next one, then 1, then 2, then 1, then 2, and do that all the way around. And for this round you're aiming to make, that's 36 stitches, so to make sure that you do get the right number, it's really worth counting as you go along. So I'm going to start off round 3 by doing the first double crochet into that same space where my chain is. There's 1, and now I'm moving on to the next space, and I'm going to do 2 in this one. 2, 3, in the next space I'm just going to do 1, 4, next one I'm going to do 2, 5, 6. So I'm going to carry on all the way around now until I've done 36. I've counted and got to 36, and I've just slip stitched in to complete that third round, drawing it to the first stitch. Now I'm going to start round 4. So now I've connected that last round, I'm going to chain 1 to start, and on this one I'm just going to do 1 double crochet into that same space where my chain is, and then I'm just going to go all the way around doing 1 double crochet into each stitch, so again I have another round of 36. Okay, and here comes my 36th stitch into that last space there, 36, and now I'm going to join it to that first stitch after the chain with a slip stitch, and that completes round 4. So now we've completed row 4 with that 36 stitches. The next 10 rows are all going to be just 36 stitches, so 1 double crochet into each stitch. And what that will start to do is start to build up the sides and start to form the base of the cup. Now I find that with these 7cm baubles that seems to be a perfect amount, and you'll see when I'm now going to carry on and do another 10 rows, and what I do, you can see my little bit of paper here, is I've written rows 5 to 14. So each time I do a row I'm going to tick it off, just so I as a way for me, that is useful for me to check that I'm doing the right amount. But you can, especially as you start to get to probably row 10, 11, this sort of area here, it's worth starting to put your bauble into the cup that you're forming, because if your tension is much looser than mine, you might start to realise that actually you might not need to do the next few rows. Or if your tension is much looser, much tighter, you might need to add on more than 10 rows. So in this next bit I'm going to carry on and get to 10 extra rows, and then I can show you starting to put the bauble in to do the last part of it, and you can see what I mean about needing to have a little bit of judgment here for these next few rows. Okay, so I've just got to the end of round 14. When I left you, we were at the end of round 4 when we'd created a round of 36 stitches, and then the next 10 were just doing 36 continuous for the next 10 rows, which meant we were doing 1 double crochet into each stitch. So essentially I've ended up now with like a little bowl, a little cup. So before I do round 15, at this point, this is a good point now to insert your bauble into your cup that you've made and to see how it's getting along. Now, as I said previously, this is the point where you want to kind of evaluate and assess how it's going. At this point, you can see it fits beautifully into the bauble there, and it's a little bit more than halfway up. So I find that the amount in the pattern fits absolutely perfectly with what I'm doing with my tensioning. But some of you might find that your tension might be a little bit looser, and therefore you might have got a little bit further up. Or if you're really crocheting very tightly, you might be not quite as far up as I currently am. And that's where you might need to add 1 or 2 more rows to get to this sort of place, doing a couple more 36s, or you might not need to do so many. So you might want to, between that 5 to 14 rounds, keep putting it into your bauble and just testing how it goes. So I'm on, I've just completed round 14, as I've said, so I'm now about to start round 15. Now in this you're going to have a decreasing double crochet to start bringing the crochet in smaller at this point up here. It sounds more complicated than it actually is. Essentially what you end up doing is gathering 2 stitches into 1 to reduce it back down to 1. So I'm going to show you. Now this gets obviously a little bit trickier to handle now because I've now got my crochet on the bauble, so it does get a little trickier to handle. So having completed that last row, I'm now just going to do my chain 1. There we go, and now I'm ready to carry on going around the same direction that I was before. Now doing this I find it a little bit easier now because I'm holding on to something to lift up and loop from my finger, lifting up the yarn, the working yarn. So let's see how we get on. So now I've got this in, I've chained my 1, I'm going to do a double crochet into that first space. Now sometimes you do kind of need to get hold of it because you want to still be going through both arms of your stitch below. So there's my first double crochet. Just wiggle it through, there we go. And now I'm going to do the first decreasing, which do for that is I'm going to insert into the next stitch, but I also pick up the next stitch next door. I yarn over and pull through both of those 2 stitches and then finish the stitch as normal by yarn over and pull through both loops. So what I've done there is I've made 1 double crochet but in 2 space of 2 below, and that's how I'm going to start decreasing. Then in the next stitch I am going to do 1 again, so just 1 normal double crochet, yarn over, pull through both on the hook, and now I'm going to do another decreasing. So I go into the next stitch as normal, but then also pick up the stitch next door, yarn over, pull through both of those. I've got 2 loops on, yarn over and pull through. So I'll see you at the other end when I get around this first row. And I've done my first row, round 15 is where I've done decreasing double crochet and therefore making it start to shrink, and it's getting a little bit tighter as we get around. So now this next row, round 16, you should have reduced this back down to 24 now. So if I do chain 1, you're now going to do a normal double crochet into each of your stitches. There we go, I'm getting my way around. That's 3 and 4. So I'm now going to carry on going through in each stitch 1 double crochet into each stitch now, and I'll see you at the other end. Okay, there's 23 and 24. So I've decreased accurately and got back down to 24, so I'm just going to slip stitch, I think it's there. Just need to lift that up to get underneath the 2 arms of the stitch, yarn over and slip stitch through to complete that round. Okay, that's now round 16, and you can see I'm very nearly at the top of my bauble now. So round 17, I'm going to do another round where I'm decreasing to halve the amount of stitches again to 12 stitches. So this time I'm going to chain 1, I'm going to double crochet into that first same space where my chain is, and then I'm going to do the same decreasing double crochet again where I insert and into the next one as well, yarn over and pull through both those stitches, yarn over and pull through 2 on the hook. I'm going to do that all the way around to reduce the number of stitches again by half, so I'll carry on until I get to the back to the beginning. Okay, so I've now got to the end of round 17 and I'm just about to complete round 18. You can see I'm very nearly at the top of my bauble now. If you find that you might need to do an extra round, that's absolutely fine. What I'd recommend is doing the final row of stitches. So round 18, we're going to try and halve it again down to 6 stitches. And if you need to do another round, I'd do 6 again by doing a double crochet into each. So I'm going to start off by doing my round 18, which is I've chained, going to chain 1, and then I'm going to do a decreasing double crochet into each of the stitches to reduce it by half again. So that is the basic pattern. As I've said, that's the basic way to cover it, and you can have a go at trying with different stripes and changing your colours to have different effects. And you can also try embroidering into these loops, which make a great base to embroider onto to add some shapes and patterns if you want to. Hello everyone, this is part 2 of my video to help you with crocheting Christmas baubles. This is the video to help you with the second pattern that's included in the Crochet Bauble kit, which is the granny pattern. You can see it's kind of based on a granny style stitching. So I'm going to guide you through how to get started with this stitch so that it will give you some support with the written pattern in the kit. So to start off, we're going to do a slip knot, and that's simply done like so. Cross over your yarn to make a loop, insert your hook into the loop, grab the long end of the yarn and pull, and you're attached to your hook. So once we're now attached, we're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to insert our hook into the 4th chain from the hook. So there's 1, 2, 3 into here, and make a slip stitch, and then we've created a little circle, and you just need to pull it around so that you are going to be working into the middle of that group of chains there. So to get us started, we're going to chain 3. That is going to act as our first treble. So we're using treble crochet, that's treble crochet in UK terms, double crochet in US terms. So I yarn over first, and we're going to now do 11 treble crochets into this circle. So my first chain 3 counts as 1, and now I'm going to do another 11. So yarn over, insert into the middle of that circle, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that's completed 1 treble stitch. I'm now going to do another 10 in that same circle of that group of chains, so I'll carry on and do that. Okay, so you want to have a total, including that first chain of 3, 12 almost arms to this circle. So let's just check I have got 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah. So now I want to join this circle together to complete it and connect it together. So you can see here's my chain of 3, 1, 2, 3. So I want to connect into that top of that chain. So insert my hook underneath both arms of that top of that stitch, yarn over and pull through that, and also the loop on the hook as a slip stitch, and that's closed that circle. And then I'm ready to start my next section of my bauble. So I'm now going to do this second round. So for that second round, what we're going to do each time on this particular one is we're actually going to take off the yarn. So I'm going to snip it, and I'm going to put the short cut end through that loop and pull it tight and finish that first circle. If you prefer, you could do this as a magic circle, and you might be able to get a tighter and more closed centre there, so that's entirely up to you. So if you want to use a magic circle, you could. you want to have the same of having 12 treble crochets around here. So even if you start with a magic circle as well, as long as you've got 12 trebles to create a circle, that will be fine. Okay, so now we're going to go into the second round, and to use the second round we're going to join into the space between each of these trebles. So we're actually going to go, if I pull this open, into this space here. So we're not using underneath the stitch like we normally would. We're actually going to go into that space between the arms of each of those trebles. So I'm going to put my hook in. You can have all sorts of ways of joining a colour. It's entirely up to you. If you're, you might have a better technique of joining a double colour, a new colour, sorry. So what I do is I've just got my loop in, and then I've just looped over and attached. Now the downside with that is it's not particularly well attached here, but we can do some knots at the very end, which I'll show you. But that's just how I get it on. And then we are going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and that counts as your first treble in this next round. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do 2 trebles into each of these spaces, almost start to form like a little granny grouping. So I'm going to do now my next treble, and I've made my first little group in that first space. Now yarn over into the next space between the treble crochets. Yarn over, insert into the same space, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, and that is now another treble. And I'm going to work all the way around doing 2 trebles in between the treble from the previous round. Okay, so I've completed round 2 now, doing 2 trebles in between the space between the single trebles that I did in that first round. And the nice thing of doing it in that way, of doing it with in between, it gives this quite nice star effect. So you actually get this really lovely pattern at the beginning. So I need to join this second round now. So I'm going to do the same as I did before, and see that I've got the top of the that first chain that I did that acted as the first treble. I'm going to do a slip stitch to attach and complete round 2. So again, I'm going to snip off and actually fasten off that round like so. Now we're going to go for round 3. So for round 3 we're going to do a different colour again. This is where this is really lovely, because you've got that complete freedom to experiment and play with how you want to do it. You might want to just, as I do, just kind of do it as I go along really. I don't have a plan in mind when I start. I just kind of put it together as I go along. So I'm going to go with this. I've got the nature colourways here, so I'm going to go with this lovely beigey colour next. So this one we're working in trebles again, but we're going to do a similar thing, that we're going to be joining again between the groups that we made in the previous round. So we're going to be using the space between the pairs of trebles that we did. So we're using that space again for this next round. So I'm going to use my way of attaching it in. I'm then going to do my chain of 3 to act as my first treble. Just put it tight again. And then I'm going to do another one in the same space. So I'm doing little groups of 2 again. But the difference this time I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 1 between each group of 2, so that I'm making a slightly more lacier effect going round. So I'm going to work my way around, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, yarn over, insert into that space between the 2, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, but don't forget to chain 1 this time. You can see what's happening this time is I'm getting a slightly more open and more lacy effect. So I'm going to carry on round, working all the way, working in between each of those 2 spaces from the previous round in round 2. Okay, so I've gone round all the way now, doing a treble into that space between the pairs of trebles in the round below, and doing that one chain between each one, which has opened up the gap and widened it around a little bit. So don't forget to do that one last chain before you complete, and before you then attach to the top of the one before the first one there. So I've now connected them, and like before, I'm going to cut it off and fasten by pulling through the loop, like so. Right, the next round that we're going to do is how we create this kind of extending pattern into this. So this is like almost like a little spike, I guess, that goes into the row below and creates that extra pattern. What we do is we get our next colour in, but we join it slightly differently this time. So we're not joining in between the groups like we've been doing. We're actually going to go back to a more conventional of joining underneath a stitch. And we want to, in this group of 2 trebles that I've got here, we want to join in the first treble stitch, which is, if you look at, here's your stem coming up, this is the first stitch here that we're going to join into. So again, I put my my hook in first. I grab the yarn and pull it through. Make sure you're through both arms of that stitch, and then I yarn over to attach. But like I've been saying, it's just a quick way that I tend to do it. I am then going to chain 1, and that's going to act as my first double crochet. So now I've got moved to double crochet, which is single crochet in US terms. I'm going to do a double crochet into the next stitch. So now for this next stitch, so I've done a double crochet into the top of each of those stitches. You can see this next stitch is almost the stitch that's sitting over the top of this large gap here. So we're going to actually grab the top of the stitch that's in the middle of this round down here. So as you can see, there's my double arm that's just left exposed in that large gap. So I'm going to put my hook in that gap, grab my yarn and pull up. Now I want to pull it up, so I'm bringing it back up to the same kind of height that my round is that I'm now working on. Yarn over and pull through both loops on the hook, and I've made a little longer, and it works really well once you've got you can see the next round, you can see it really stand out. So I've now done a stitch across that gap. Now I'm back to the next stitch in the round, so I'm just going to do a normal double crochet into there, another double crochet into the next stitch, and then I'm back to doing the spike again. So I'll show you that again. I'm going to put my hook into the top of the stitch in that gap on the round below, pull up my yarn and pull it up to the level of my current round, yarn over and pull through both loops. I'm then back to doing 2 more normal double crochets, and then I'm back to the spike stitch space again. So I'm going to carry on doing that, working all the way around to complete that 4th round. Completed this 4th round using this really lovely spike stitch, which adds that little bit of interest into the pattern. I just want to make sure we don't forget that once we get back round that we do that last spike. It's quite easy to miss that last spike in there. So I'm just putting my hook into that row below, yarn over and pulling it up and doing through both. And then I just need to join onto that first double crochet that I started with. So I'm just going to do a slip stitch into there. If I can get hold of it, there we go. And close that round. And again, you can close, snip off and pull it tight. Okay, so that's the basic sort of adding the detail and the pattern into your granny style cover for your baubles. And the next few rounds are really just doing some double crochet just to build up to start bringing that curve around. So what I like to do is I like to do 1 round doing double, but then I do another round of treble, which gives you this little bit more gapey look here. But again, that round, the rows 5 to 6, maybe to 7, depending on how many you do. So you basically want probably about 3 more rounds after you've completed this bit. You could either do 3 rounds of just double crochet, which will probably be long enough, because actually there also is a lot of give and you can stretch and tighten these up. Or like this example here is 1 row of double and then 1 row of treble, because obviously that is almost the equivalent of 2 rows there. So that's the next part to do, is to complete your next 3 rows, and then you need to repeat and make it exactly the same for your other half, so that you end up with 2 cups to stitch together. I've completed 2 halves using the pattern, and I finished off after I'd done my spike stitch on these particular ones. I did 1 row of double crochet and then I did a row of treble, so that basically those 3 rows were taking up with those 2 stitches. So you basically want to have about another 3 rows after the spike stitch round to get that curve start to happen and to have your cups big enough to get around your bauble. Once I'd finished them, I also then, as you can see on here, just went round on the inside and did little knots just to finish off each of those different ends of my rounds. The next part then obviously is to do the attaching onto the bauble, and essentially we're giving it a little coat, putting it on like this. So it looks initially like there's quite a big gap and it looks a bit like, oh gosh, I should have crocheted more. You really don't, because actually there's quite a lot of give in this crochet, and even if I just slightly start to pinch it, you can see how it does come together. So using any of the leftover yarn that you've got from your kit, obviously bear in mind what you want to, other baubles, if this is your first one, what other colours you want to use, or you might want to make them all first and join them together at the end and see what you've got left. It's entirely up to you. Now I'm going to use completely contrasting, pick up that middle colour at on the inside end there, but also so you can see it. You can obviously do it the same colour, so it's an invisible join, or you could do make it more of a feature. So it's a little bit hard to get going at first, but my recommendation, if you are going to do a contrasting, is start up near the top of the opening. So take the lid off, just so you can kind of get to the end a little bit easier, so you want to get up to here. And start at this end, because if you want to do any little knots or anything like that, then it's going to be hidden a little bit more when you put the cap back on. So you could, if you want to have that bit of security, actually tie a knot. You can see it slipping down from where I want to be, but that's fine because I can push it back up. I've just literally done it, I haven't done a full knot there, I've just tightened it. And I'm going to pick up the top of each of the stitches on either side to just do almost like a slip stitch through and work my way around, and you can see that's obviously making like a stitch like that. So I'm working my whole way around, picking up the stitches to join. So I'll carry on doing that until I get back round to the other end. Okay, so I'm coming back up to the other side now, where I'm getting very close to where I started. And there's no right or wrong reason for how to do this really. You can really play and see how tight you want to make it. I'm going to do another stitch there, and you can see doing that stitch has really pulled it through. I'm just going to now, and I'm making my way around the other side of my opening, so I'm just having to stick my needle in wherever I can get it really, and I'm going to do another, just to attach that up here, and then I could knot these 2 ends together if I wanted. I might do that and pull those around. As I said, there's no really right or wrong way to do this. You just essentially want to get it stitched together and make it nice and tight and fastened off, so that when you put the cap back on, you want to either hide these bits in it a little bit, or that they might just not really notice really. So if I just put my cap on there, I can sort of push them under. Okay, so there you go. That's the granny pattern style. Again, as I keep saying, there's so many lovely ways you can really experiment and play around with this and make it your own. You could go back over and make this into a cross stitch going the other way. You could use your metallic yarn in there. You might have some spare ribbon at home that you want to attach it and do it up with ribbon. You could do another stitch in there. There's just so many lovely things that you can do. So I really hope that that helps you with the written pattern. I hope it inspires you to have a little play as well and try out some different things if you are going to have a go with the rest of your baubles in your kit. So there we go, there's some support with the written instructions for the Suzie Jules Crochet Bauble kit. I hope that's been useful to help you understand the patterns, to help you with the basic pattern and the granny style pattern. As I've said, this is such a wonderfully creative kit. It really lets you experiment with colours, patterns. Once you feel a bit braver, you might want to try some other stitches within the pattern too. Don't forget to also remember that with extra yarn or with any metallic yarns that you can do some embellishing and some stitching into the patterns as well. Add on some beads. There's so many lovely things you can do with them. They are then a really lovely keepsake, something that feels that little bit more personal, something that's a bit special to keep and enjoy year after year. I would love to see your creations, so when you've completed your baubles, if you want to share them on Instagram, you can share them and tag in at suzie.jules. I would love to see your Instagram posts on what you've created. Also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook. If you Google Suzie Jules on Facebook, you'll find our page, and on Twitter at Suzie Jules, all one word as well. It'd be great to see what you get up to. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. It would be lovely to see you back again on Suzie Jules Creates for some more creative ideas.